I just wanted to ask you a couple questions. Yeah, my name's Sumit. Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to see you.
I saw that you're coming on campus, and I wanted to talk to you about something real quick, right? So, personally, I'm someone that really values free speech, right, and an uninhibited engagement among people that disagree. And it's really unsettling to me that you have this website, professorwatchlist.org, right?
Yep.
That basically tells conservative students that, hey, these professors are very liberal, and you should avoid them.
It doesn't say avoid them.
The official statement I read said that you
Just to expose.
Okay, fine, expose. But even in that, I feel like that colors thought, so that it really teaches conservative people
Do
that
you think when a professor says something like the hurricane victims of Houston deserve to die because they supported Trump, do you think that professor should be called out for that?
I think, yes, it's important to call them out, but I don't think it's...
So that's what our project does.
Oh, I understand what you're intending to do, right? But how it's received is it's something where it's really, you're coloring their speech to where it's not free speech.
No, but
you're
we're
telling
not
them
saying
what to do
it's
beforehand.
not Professor Blacklist or Professor Hitlist.
But
we're not saying they should shut up or be fired.
But for example, so this one professor, I think his name was Alberto Ponce.
Okay.
I was reading the list and it said that he was basically he was saying these things, and he was saying that, oh, the Constitution is a white man's Constitution.
That's a quite radical sentiment.
Sure, it's a radical sentiment, but it's protected by the First Amendment.
No doubt.
It's something that
you and I will agree on.
Right?
Yeah, he has a right to say it.
Right.
But also, my opinion would be we as conservatives need to signal where that radical ideology is present. And I don't understand these professors. We're not misquoting them.
Yeah. No, I understand
all this
that.
stuff is we're just making
But
them
would
more
you agree
famous.
that it's taken out of context, though?
But that's not my fault if someone takes something out of context.
But
so if
you're
I says your
providing
sweatshirt
the
is red,
statement.
it's not anyone's fault except the interpreters.
Sure, but you're providing this platform for people to spread this misinformation.
Not necessarily.
You don't think it's a platform where people can spread misinformation?
You could say the same thing about the internet or Twitter or Facebook. It's not incumbent on the person who creates the platform to be responsible for how people interpret it.
Of course, but a lot of times when there are people kind of discussing this thing and they hold a similar view, then it creates something that's akin to blacklist. At least that's how I feel.
Okay.
That it's a lot like, or the sentiment reminds me of something like McCarthyism back.
So
you're creating this list of people.
Well, okay. So first of all, McCarthy never published his list.
Sure.
So we have a list and we're very public about it.
Yeah.
Secondly, McCarthy called for the termination of people. We've never called for any termination of any professors.
But would you agree that you can incite some degree of violence against us?
No, not necessarily. No, none whatsoever. I mean, the same would be said if a news reporter. By the way, all these professors we have on there were reported on by other news outlets. So we cited them.
Yeah, I understand.
So why not be mad at Huffington Post for all their articles they write about?
I guess my main question to you is basically with all this, right? Mm-hmm. My feeling is that it inhibits this free engagement because it tells people beforehand that, hey, this is what that person believes.
I would disagree. I think it encourages more speech.
Let me ask. All right. So my question is, how can you guarantee that this is not going to inhibit free speech?
You can never guarantee it. But we're using our right to free speech to encourage more speech.
Are you encouraging more speech, or are you silencing that speech?
How are we silencing it?
You're silencing it in the sense that you're telling students that, hey, this person has this preconceived notion, right? So you're giving students this idea that, hey, this professor thinks these things, he believes these things.
So then
when they take that class, they're not going to go into it with this open mind, being these free thinkers. They're going to go into it thinking, hey, this professor has this ideal. I should know that when I engage.
But what's wrong with that?
I think the thing that's wrong with that is
maybe they're more aware.
That's literally antithetical to free speech, would you say?
No, it's not.
I think it's important to engage with someone and rationalize their ideas.
Of course.
Instead of viewing them beforehand.
So when a professor says something like the hurricane comment, which is a real something the United States Press said, or from University of Houston, or when the Georgetown law professor a couple weeks ago said, we want Brett Kavanaugh's family to die. They should be made famous when they say stuff like that.
I don't think they should be made famous, though, because then you're inciting violence against them.
How are you inciting violence?
You're inciting this negative sentiment.
It's like saying
towards
a
them,
newspaper
right?
incites violence when they cover anything.
But would you agree with me in saying there's a significant difference between a newspaper that's a public outlet and something like TPUSA and something like this, where you have a bunch of like-minded articles, right? So I don't know. My feeling is just that it creates this environment where speech is not equal.
I appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah.
You're being so respectful.
And I appreciate you coming here. And it was nice talking to you.
You too, man. Thank